August 28th, the Union's still in its panic mode. This is the second turn of that. They don't panic again if they have another problem. And the event for the turn was more Union reinforcement delays, so everything from this turn and last gets pushed further back. Confederates have some couple decent-sized divisions. This one's huge. 17. And again, there aren't counters to support them all. I have to use 2 counters because there are no 17s for the Confederates, for example. I thought this was just a problem for the one scenario. Nah, it's kind of across the board. Quite far back, but that might be able to help me cross the Rappahannock here maybe someday. I don't know. It's like really hard to justify trying to launch some sort of attack there. But we could, as I said before, swing around in a different direction and maybe launch attacks across. However, where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next turn is when the supply is checked. So after next turn is when we'd consider leaving Culpeper County. We're certainly not going to do it right now. Since clustering around Heinzelman, at kind of the key location to pressing forward. I don't know what I can do about this. The Union actually got an initiative, but I'm not seeing much I could do. I could fall back and give that up. I could hope for the best, but there's a real danger I'm going to get completely surrounded. So I don't see any easy way that I can get my forces there. I think he's going to try to fall back and give up, the big points here. That includes a depot too. But, better to lose those points than take casualties and lose the points. We're already way behind on casualties. He positions himself to destroy the railroad station and also to put some threat on Heinzelman. Heinzelman's going to have to march away harder. Now, Bull Run Bridge, I believe, is one of the point values things, as always, because there's not a player aid for the victory conditions. You have to kind of look through this horrible list here, and yeah, it's one of the big value ones. So if I can collect up multiple of those, that gets me more score. I don't know, I think Briscoe was one as well, so we'll try to knock that out too. Lee and Longstreet busted their way down here and knocked a unit out. Equal casualties, both took a strength point of losses, which isn't a particularly good roll. The Union rolled well, given all the modifiers that were in play. That was a core attack. Just because it was really unlikely I'd be able to get a lot of movement, and the extra +1 seemed valuable. Position is a really difficult one, because yes, there's troops coming in from up here. Might be able to help defend some of this. But I can't really afford to swing these forces around. I'm currently in still panic mode, so I'm not particularly good at combat. I probably don't want to launch into combat, plus a lot of my units are beaten up pretty badly. But if I give up this area, I'm giving up some more points here. What can I defend, what can I not? That's kind of hard to tell, and I hope whatever was up here didn't have a depot, because it doesn't anymore. These guys are safe. They can't be taken from me. I'm really having a hard time figuring out what to do. I guess I can start moving Porter. That's probably a pretty good move. Union's moving Banks up, getting closer. Trying to figure out some way to deal with things. These are all disordered units, right? No, demoralized is what it is. They're disordered too, and they have to try try to figure out what they're going to do. Really can't exert any pressure here on Briscoe Station, which is a victory point space. Porter moving up, of course. Forces coming down to try to join the Confederates, pushing these guys really around the edges units. One of the problems is Lee can't leave here because this guy's so fatigued. But these forces, I'm not sure how much value they're going to make pushing this way. One of them ought to get into Briscoe Station and destroy it. But beyond that, I'm having a hard time figuring out something I really want to do. With Porter heading up this way, my cav here, I can try to find something for them to do, probably around the flanks of Jackson's force. Maybe covering Longstreet down there a little bit. Screening is the only thing it's really good for, so, you know. And then I've got units like this down here that just aren't really doing much either. But I want to get these heavy infantry into place so that I can try to bust my way up there when it's time for the end of the game. And it looks like I'm leaving this corner, which has some victory points in it, alone. We'll see, but it just doesn't feel like there's enough time. You know, I could run up there possibly, but then I'm losing whatever force is here in terms of affecting the main battle that's developing, or still developing. At the end of the 28th, and things kind of fleshed out a little bit more. The Union line here, Lee's holding them off. This is Hood over there as well. He's kind of in a position. These forces largely recovering. Henselman cut off. Stuart was able to make a big run around him. He could have maybe slipped away, but it was kind of not focusing too much on what was going on, and Stuart got around behind him. That's a bad situation. I don't know if Stuart's big enough to count. He's 2. It's ×5. He's not big enough to probably affect Heinzelman in terms of surrounding him. But he's still painful being there, because it means if Heinzelman tries to pull away from that location, Stuart can do a retreat and cost him probably as many movement points as he's going to have, and stick him there for at least one move in action. Over here, Confederates are afraid to cross the line. These forces have moved up. Not a lot else. I mean, really nothing much happened. All the excitement was early on when those battles occurred. And now we got a big stack of units, and of course if the Union get another reinforcement delay, they may never get the Army of the Potomac on the board, you know. So no such luck this time getting the delay. In fact, what we got as an event was Confederates got a reinforcement advantage, pushed Walker's division into play. I don't know how much value those are going to be. Lots of people are out of supply, and the lines are kind of tough to draw. I'm going to talk a little bit about, first there's an anomalous situation, which is this cav down here. It's actually outside of Stafford County. It probably doesn't make a difference either way. Technically, I'd have to take an action to go feed him at some point, because he's in the wrong county and is out of supply, because this rail doesn't count for anything because it goes back to a depot. It's not the source counties, or the source places, are here and here, basically the 2 main rail lines there. I don't buy this. I don't buy that the Union didn't have rail operations going down here, given that they were parked at Fredericksburg. So I'm going to ignore that. consider it a special rule. I don't think there's anything in the rules about it. But some of the effects, first of all, way down here in Fauquier, there's obviously no supply, so all the Union troops are out of supply there. Now, all the Confederates are out of supply there too, because that's not one of the counties that they're automatically in supply. Up here in Prince William, it's a little more interesting. The fact that Heintzelman sat here and that Bull Run Bridge wasn't destroyed and nothing behind it is, means that this entire county is in supply. So it might be kind of nice that I didn't fall back, right? Somebody would have had to destroy it, but so Porter's in supply here. These guys are obviously all in supply. Shocker. All the way out here, he's not. He would have been in supply here in Warren County because the rail line runs there, but that rail space was the one that was destroyed, and that prevents the line from here from continuing on. I believe that one, sort of. The only reason I wouldn't believe it is this rail going off here, but they don't specify that would make a sufficient rail connection. So we're going to go with that unit being out of supply as well. In addition, wherever the hell he is, McClellan has shown up to replace Pope. I thought McClellan would come in with his army. Nah, he has to show up in the exact space Pope did. He goes to the Army Command and takes over, which may not be absolutely optimal for us. We're probably going to swing him around, try to get him over near the other forces. Right now, the Union has sort of an advantage, but they got a long way to go. I can get like one division up into to chase Stuart off or whatever. It looks like the Confederates are not going to be able to push beyond here, which means point-wise, right now, let's take a look at what we're doing. Just seems like a good time to consider it. Point-wise, we have the 15 and the 10. We have two of the railway stations taken, so that's 25 points. We don't have Fairfax Courthouse or Falls Church. Those are these two spaces there. Those are the big ones. So we're at 25 points for that. We did take Culpeper, though. We took a depot, so we're at 31. Culpeper's worth 3 more. That puts us to 34. Assuming that the Union doesn't take it back, and it doesn't look likely. And then the question is, can we get to Fairfax or Prince William with a lot of troops? That looks very likely that we're not being driven back. So we're going to get a lot of points there. But we're looking at like 35 there, 45, say 52. And for the full scenario, that looks like we're already at a marginal victory, plus whatever troops we keep in play. Most of these points can't be taken away from us. The casualties, the Union could cause us some casualties if they, get some battle wins. Culpeper could conceivably be taken back, but I don't see that it's likely. These guys really aren't that important anymore. On the other hand, they got a long walk back. I don't know if I particularly want to do that. A lot of the activity in this turn is going to be troops trying to recover their morale, their supply status. It doesn't really affect them for this turn what their supply status is. But it's going to hurt them at the end of the turn if they don't get it into play, and it'll hurt them from then on. So we're going to probably see a lot of foraging attempts early on, but there's also the interesting issue of Confederates are in supply here and can try to push through. The Union, and the reason not to do it, not to give them this, is there's so many of these stations. I don't know which ones in particular, though. That's the thing. And that's what we got to kind of look up. So Catlett, Manassas Junction, and Bristow. Well, we took Bristow, we took Manassas Junction. You know what? We haven't gotten the 25 points. We're actually 15 points behind what I said we were. So we're not doing as well as I thought. In fact, Bull Run is the first of the 15 pointers. Will we be able to get it? Probably, because it's sitting on the wrong side of the river. But yeah, so we're not doing as well as I thought. I don't think any of these are of any value. Warrentown, Bealton. Doesn't look like it. Looks like Rappahannock is the first one of any value, and they're actually holding that. So I don't know. This is worth a couple of points. Am I willing to fall back? We'll see what's happening, and what you know, how badly we get. How hard it is to get actions, basically, because the turn could end, and we want to make sure we get other things done before we do that, which I'm not really sure we want to do anyway. Given a false impression, sometimes things are kind of cloudy in my mind when I'm babbling. Explains a lot, right? So the units that are out of supply, basically the idea is they don't want to move, because at the end of the turn, when they get to the supply effects phase or whatever, they have a chance of foraging. And the more fatigue they have, the more problems they have with foraging. This isn't like, let me make sure I'm getting this right, because it's different in Lee versus Grant. In Lee versus Grant, I believe you spend an action. No, you just don't fatigue, which is essentially the same thing. But here, it's only in the recovery level. So the more you do, the less likely you're going to succeed in foraging. And so there's a reason to kind of stay in the same hex. Now I'm playing with the dispersal rule, which means a stack of units, it doesn't matter the size of the units, but a stack of a lot of units may not be the best thing to have. That, I think, is just 2 units, so they're fine. They get as much penalty as moving off that stack would. Initial activations, the Confederates ran off this cav, but then they realized they can't deal with this shit. It's an 18 plus 4 is 22. They can't get decent odds against it. At least not with what they have in the area. And do they really need to? Rappahannock Station? Sure, it's worth a couple victory points. But if I bypass and get behind the Union there, I can cause some trouble. So instead, I started filtering these guys up. The guys up here, I don't want to move. They're all looking for food and bullets and, you know, spare guns and all kind of other stuff. Now, granted, they can make their own bullets. So they, you know, they can raid farms and, you know, try to melt things made out of lead down into balls. At least with the old style muskets. This is fairly early still. I doubt that you have many sharpshooters in that. Yeah, this is 62. I doubt you have a whole lot of breech loaders and stuff at this point. So, yeah, they can probably forage for some of the stuff. The ammo, not the powder, not so much. Let's see. For the Union, I guess the only thing I really did was march down here. I thought I would use the rail with those guys, but I think I'm not going to because they got such a good jump. I'm going to see if I can get some of Sumner's troops down. Basically, I want to combine and get 16 strength points behind Stuart. And I was hoping those guys would be the ones. They got too good a roll, you know. So Franklin's made a Move up towards Stewart here. Sumner not so good. Fifth Corps slid up behind Talafiero. We'll talk about that in a moment. Confederates chased that cav with infantry actually and took it out. It was so fatigued it was basically shot. And that was like a hasty attack, an unprepared attack, the -3 on the table, but I had like 11 strength points to a half. I forgot to add my artillery in too. Anyway, I went beyond the multiplier, or the odds chart will take you in terms of modifiers. The Confederates have an activity now, and I'm considering moving Talafiero. He's allowed to march directly from one zone to another. It takes all his movement points, but he's in a terrible location right now. He may still be in a terrible location if Fifth Corps decides to kind of extend their march and try to get behind him again. But where he is right now is just awful. The Union could make an attack with this Kearney and have him completely surrounded. So I'm kind of lucky the Union didn't get another activity actually in between those, I guess. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that, even though it means my foraging won't be as good. And it's one of the costs of foraging near enemy troops. And this is where the Union's going to be able to do some harm, I think, is that everything here in Prince William, which is this line, is mobile. Now, that really means Henselman here. Yeah, I know that's part of him there, but he ran down during the free leader placement, 20 hex range, and he had a lot of leader movement here because the situation has swung from the Confederates being on the attack to the Union kind of being more on the attack now. So I also wanted to get, I guess the other big one was moving McClellan over to Fifth Corps. Interesting thing about this situation, supply lines don't make a damn bit of difference anymore. We got foraging, but for the rest of the game, there's no more supply checks. And that means, yeah, just run by the enemy, do what you want to do. No worries about it. That disturbs me. I feel like I understand the concept of, yeah, these troops could march away from their supply lines, do things, and go back. But, and this is the same problem with Lee versus Grant, having it at a fixed point makes time kind of funny. It's like, oh yeah, you got to be in supply, but not just at some point within the last 5 or 6 turns, but at this specific point. Now, from a game point of view, yeah, I understand. You can't really put if you don't have those fixed points, then you have to keep track with all your units. What's its current supply status? How many turns has it been out of supply? Is it, needing to feed? And that becomes a nightmare. I've played games with that kind of bookkeeping. It would make the game unplayable. And on the other hand, the solution leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not suggesting I know a better solution. There are ways you could do it. Instead of tracking on a per unit basis, you could track on a per corps basis. There aren't that many corps in the game. Keeping a little supply marker, on an off-track box would work. If it was like the Zucker games where you have to keep track of strength points on a chart anyway, then keeping track of supply status on that same chart wouldn't be that big a deal, or on a piece of paper or whatever. But given that, the units are pretty much being kept track of with strength point counters instead, you would have to, you have to kind of accept I think this decision, even though I don't really like it much, I would much prefer one where it's not, oh, this turn I'm running out of supply. It just feels unnatural. Now, in a sense, every game has an unnatural time limitation on it, anything with game turns. So the fact that, like, yep, you recover at the end of each day, except there is something natural about recovering at the end of a day. If turns were 2 or 3 days, there would be a, well, why do I recover at the end of every 3 days, you know? But there's something very natural about the fact that troops will probably be sleeping at night. And if they're not, that's because their fatigue markers have gone too high. That's the way of representing that. So that all works very naturally. The only thing that really doesn't, to me, in the flow, is this concept of, yep, you know, it's not quite, but if you're not in supply on Saturday, you're screwed. I mean, basically. The question is whether or not I want to push the Union forces further at this point in order to start hitting out of supply units. There's advantages to that. They become much less likely to be able to forage if I hit them. So this 1 fatigue unit would be great, except it's only 3 strength points, and it would probably get its ass kicked by Stuart's Cav. But if I start pushing my units a little bit heavier, like, say, send this into Stuart, well, he may have to withdraw before combat, and thus gain 2 fatigue markers, be disorganized. That's a potential for him to start losing casualties. They won't count over here, though, so it's not that exciting. The more exciting part about it, though, is I'll probably disorganize the enemy troops. Of course, I might disorganize my own troops in trying it. I don't see doing it broadly. My forces down here facing Longstreet's troops, well, they need to recover too. They need to do foraging too. These guys probably can't launch an effective attack. But right here, that's tempting. The only negative to it is that's my station. It's possible that Jackson here, with this big force, could end up foraging successfully and could end up slamming into that station before I get out of there. I think given all these things, I'm stopping here. I don't think it's worth trying to inflict extra fatigue on the enemy in the hopes of keeping his force disorganized. I think I'm going to get some fair amount of disorganization out of this anyway, just by, you know, there's a reasonable number. We're here in, this is Prince William, I think. Let's see what that looks like. Prince William, it's a 4. Fairfax would be the ugly one to get them into. We actually have some in Fairfax, you know. So those are, that was probably a mistake to cross over into there. But, you know, I thought fording the river made a lot of sense. But just over that river, it gets a little harder to get food. You gotta bring it through that ford. And yeah, I think it's got more to do with the fact that there just isn't, there's a dearth of supplies there, because there was some fighting there before. All right. So let's take care of the damn supplies. And as the picture as we go into August 30th. Confederates aren't the only ones with supply problems that are lasting. And in fact, they recovered most of them. Telefiero did not, but both Stuart and Jackson's stacks did. Got Fitzlee here, he failed. There's a sporadic few failures, and those are kind of problematic because they're still out of supply, which means they have to forage again next turn. So I really don't want to move them. I think they looked over that entire area. They should go further right. And they might start losing strength points. One Union unit, the Shirts here lost one. I think got bashed back in combat or something. I had him on his disorganized size. I may have been an error, but whatever. Because I found others, like here, Siegel is still out. Steinware is still out. Well, Steinware was not marked on as out of supply, but his unit was disorganized, or his strength points were disorganized, and I think I flipped the wrong one there. But with shirts, I think they were both flipped over. But who knows? You know, maybe I lost a strength point I shouldn't have. Anyway, this is our positioning right now. The Union has to do something pretty hefty to make up for the situation. They can't let a lot of Confederate troops be sitting in Prince William, right? I know Fairfax is worth 2, but I think Prince William's worth 1 per, and that's probably as far as it goes. If I can find the damn victory conditions, they're painful for me. Fairfax or Prince William. Yeah, those are both 2s. And Loudon, Clark, and Frederick are 1s. So basically, I have to throw the Confederates back. I don't know how likely that is, except if I lose sight of the victory conditions and, you know, fear that I'm going to lose strength points because of my position. Honestly, there's nothing forcing the Confederates to fall back. There's no supply considerations to this that I remember. Maybe there are. Who knows? But I don't think there are. Okay, if you're completely surrounded, you can't be there. You don't get the points. But that's the only way. And I think it's going to be almost impossible to throw the Confederates back completely. So there's at least 10 points there, right? Let's see, another 20 here. Let's call it 30 for that. 40. Right now, we're probably looking at a Confederate marginal. Just because I don't see the Confederates being able to get any of these easily. The Union forces, the Army of the Potomac is in place, might be able to, but it's really hard to fight in this game. It's one of the interesting things. Some of it's not just, gosh, combat's so bloody, because it can be really bloody on the attacker. But I do find that, yeah, I attack at +3, and oh, I get good die rolls. Hey, it's great. Good things happen. But the particular situation, get in the habit of just maneuvering and not really wanting to calculate out combat. And it's sort of this self-fulfilling cycle, basically, you know. Yeah, I'm getting used to, my habit is to not fight, so I tend to avoid it. I don't need this anymore. The other side of it, though, is what's kind of interesting with this. In Lee versus Grant, Grant can really kind of grind into Lee's troops. Lee never wants to fight. That feels right as the attacker, and it kind of captures the situation pretty well. You'd rather outflank Lee and, you know, do him a lot of harm. But I find sometimes it's easier to try to grind down his forces. We didn't see that in the game I played. I went for the outflank, and that worked pretty well, actually. So, you know, Rosencrantz would do a better job. But here, Lee's on the offensive, and he doesn't have the numbers. So he really cannot just try to fight an attritional battles here. He's got to pick his battles for ones that are either vital for his victory conditions towards, like, yeah, I need to get that railway. It's worth doing, you know, a +1 or +2 attack. Or when he's got huge odds and can rack up the combat losses. And that's, you know, what we're kind of seeing there, really. Because losses aren't that likely, but once you get good odds or bad odds, they become a lot more likely to cause reasonable damage. August 30th, and I've been away for a few days, unfortunately. Friday, I go dancing Fridays. I didn't want to start a big turn. This looks like it's going to be an important turn. And Saturday, I was just wiped out. I don't know if I was a little sick or just fatigue built up. Now today I'm going shopping, which is a huge deal, but I can't keep putting it off because I'm leaving town this week at the end of the week, so we got to get moving and finish this up, and maybe start something else, but I don't know, something small. I'm looking at Arquebus next, so we might be able to get something time limited, but with 4 turns, I should be able to finish it. It looks like we're getting a Confederate victory here, but we don't know for sure. The Union could win a big battle. Battle being more than one combat in the game. Battles. We're at a level that I consider kind of somewhere between what I'd really think of as operational and grand tactical. It's sort of a very low-level operational game. So it's got an interesting feel. And so most of the Zucker ones do too, the operational ones of those. They're in much more detail than your World War II operational stuff, for example. All right, let's see what we can find. Nothing special in these random events. Came up with Confederate accelerated reinforcements. Well, there aren't any. So the Union did get this guy Moore in. Not a lot, just a couple. Strength points. I trimmed my thing a little bit, but it started to fall apart again. Maybe it's not long for this world. We're starting to lay a threat on Talafiero. Kemper here is providing some support, causing some problems where you can't get through very easily. What that means, Lee, Jackson, they pulled back across the Bull Run. Yes, there's a lot of points here, but I'm in no position to really try to bust my way through there, I don't think. I've got a marginal victory in place right now. Depending on what happens over here, it may turn into something more. Because remember, I've got all of these forces coming up. So Longstreet is going to see what he can do over there in Fauquier County. Actually, most of them's in Prince William. Points are doubled in Prince William County for units present. They're not worth anything in Fauquier. So, we kind of have to bust our way through here. We'll see whether if the Union gives way, well, then we have a lot of forces we can bring up to Prince William and just try to, do what we can towards holding that. If he stays, we'll try to catch him and crush him like a nut. Our goal here is to stay alive. We've burned or destroyed the 2 stations that are up there. If the Union gets badly defeated, maybe we can move forward, but this doesn't seem like the kind of game where you can gain ground very easily against an opposition force. You can slip around behind them, and maybe that would be possible if I stayed back here. There are definitely points to be gotten over there, but I feel like the raid portion is kind of done now, and now it's time to find myself a defensive position and score my points for staying in the Union-occupied area and threatening them on a more long-term basis. In which case, the railway moving up maybe becomes more Confederate-controlled and less Union-controlled, right? And after chasing Stuart away, we got 2 Union Corps facing Talafiero's division right here. Possible coordinated attack because I got McClellan in there. Is that enough? I don't know. I don't have a really good surrounding. Outnumbering doesn't matter much. Leadership does matter. And I got Jackson in there. He's as good as Longstreet on defense. So. It's hard to tell. If it all comes in, like if these guys move 1 more hex, that would be pretty impressive. I don't think we're going to get 2nd Corps into play with any ease. Confederates are holding the ford there, so it's really unlikely. So this is probably pretty close to as good as we're going to get in terms of a single major battle. First, the Confederates throw A.P. Hill in with Jackson. Now that pulls Jackson out of here, but they're hitting Morrell over here. Lee is along, but he doesn't help. It comes out as a 1-to-1, but we're at like +4. Jackson's command and a little bit of surrounding action going on there. So let's see if this is enough to start breaking up that Union positioning. I don't know if the Union had enough to really hurt Talaferro, but ooh, that's gonna hurt. So that's +8. That's gonna do a lot of damage. Morrell's like 12 strength points total, so that's a 4 DR, and we were only like 18 or so, so that's nothing. This would have been a panic if we didn't have one already. Ouch. It's beginning to gather more forces again to try to take Talaferro down. Porter slamming into here. Henselman's 3rd Corps coming in. With that kind of concentration, I don't know if I want to stay here, but it's going to be hard to withdraw with Porter sitting here. Maybe I have to try to bash him away. I'm not sure. I don't really have a lot of numbers, but I have the commanders there. Extricating Talaferro is becoming an important consideration. I'm thinking I can fall back here to what? A Broad Run, because it's pretty obvious I'm not going to be able to hold a line at Bull Run. If I could have knocked Kearney out of here, I might have been able to do that, but the Unions kind of put enough pressure on me that I can't. Looks like a decent option. Lee using Talaferro as some surrounding forces, I believe, comes in at +3 against Porter's Corps there. We're going to take a shot at this. I think it's the only way to get Talaferro out of there safely. Oh, not good. On the 0 table. Nobody's going to be fleeing, and it looks like the Confederates are going to take some casualties finally. I mean, it's kind of a weak Corps assault off. McClellan wasn't able to help. But Franklin at least was able to get his Corps attacking against Talaferro. Turns out we're at 1-to-2 odds, which is a -1. Leadership's not helping, but we have the full surround bonus, which is a +4. So we're at +3 on the table. Not what we'd hoped for, but a retreat will cause extra casualties. Those casualties don't count for victory points, though, for some reason. So we end up at a +3, which looks like it'll generate a retreat at least. And I don't know how the points are, but we're probably looking at some casualties on both sides. I forgot about this. If you can retreat down a road through enemy zones of control, you're fine. Again, weird interplay of how roads and zones work. A little different from the Lee versus Grant. Lee versus Grant, you'd pay a penalty for retreating through. This was the combat hex. I was able to slide all the way back. This was just a normal retreat, not a route. And the Union 6th Corps marches forward. Still have Kearney to activate. One interesting thing is this has kind of cut Ewell off. He was up here trying to hold the river line. He's going to have to cross into Fairfax and find his way back, I think. He's not going to be able to batter his way through. Casualties, you know, they were about even. So I think I failed to mark them, actually. I think we got one more on each. So yeah, we're at 24-4. So that's a big, healthy difference in terms of the casualties so far. But now, you know, significant Union forces are coming into play. So, and beating up on, you know, things like Talaferro getting hit. Well, he's out of supply, disorganized. He's going to lose strength points due to not being able to forage this turn too, probably. Want another activation immediately after? I don't know what to do with it. I mean, it seems like, hey, I should cut Ewell off, but I'm not sure how much that does me. I mean, he can limp his way out of there one way or another. Do I want to commit something like Kearney here, who could certainly move, you know, moving into these areas doesn't help. and that's expensive. You need a lot of movement to get 2 hexes there. Well, he couldn't because of the zone. But the other option is, hey, do I want to send Smith 6th Corps? I remember him from Lee versus Grant. Sliding, you know, to try to put pressure on him. I don't see what that pressure is going to do. First of all, I'd have to get all the way back here to have any real effect, and I'm not going to be able to get that far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He could do core movement, so he could conceivably physically get there. But anything less than that, you can slip away from. And then the other consideration is, what does he do if he's there? He doesn't have enough strength to really, you know, launch an effective attack. So all he's doing is pinning Ewell in place. And if he does that, you know, a low odds attack or whatever, it's not going to happen across the river. But it's tying down some of my forces that maybe I could better apply over to this side. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Sumner forward again. As they're seeking out weak points to, you know, take advantage of in the case of the Confederates. Set up here. This is not that weak a point, but if it starts degenerating due to lack of supply, plus I'm bringing a lot of force to bear on it, I might be able to hit it. This turn I would have been able to hit it at like +1 or +2. If it recovers, that gets worse, but if it doesn't recover, it gets better. I decided to take my chances, even though odds are in favor of recovering, because I would have had to go to fatigue 3, and I don't know. That means no recovery for myself if I get hurt. Over here, the Union has more forces, but Longstreet's troops that are there aren't terribly well positioned, but the problem is the Union's out of supply, kind of waiting until we can see what kind of recovery we get there. I feel like the numerical advantage combined with a future positional advantage will give us a better shot there. We threw some cav over here to screen Longstreet, make it difficult for these guys if they get into supply. And then up here, the Union's trying to put pressure there. That hasn't worked so far very well, but again, we have this numerical superiority in the area locally that we want to take advantage of. It just hasn't really materialized. It's hard for the Union to get good combat bonuses somehow. They just, you know, their leaders tend to be less effective than the 2 corps leaders that the Confederates have. So if the Confederates pick their battles carefully and can get things into place, they can do it better. Surrounding, well, the Union's got the edge right now on that. Here at least, and here it looks like it's going to develop. Here, obviously, the Confederates have it. We got to check our supply status for the units that haven't foraged successfully yet and see where we get to. As we start to push into August 31st, you can see kind of what you can see here, which is with all these forts and fatigue markers, maybe not that clear. Union's positioned across here. These guys obviously tired from the fighting. They're disorganized. It's not good. They probably won't keep pushing the fighting. Very much like in some of the tactical games, there's this, oh, let's rest these units for a day. After they've been in heavy fighting, they get to that fatigue 4 and disorganized, and they're really not that capable, and you don't want to push them, you know. You can, but it might make more sense to pull them out of combat for a day. These guys recovered, which is not a good thing for the Confederates. August 31st comes about, and no special effects, no events or anything of any interest. Accelerated Confederate reinforcements. There's always an event. It usually doesn't take any effect. Union gets the first activation, and I'm looking and having a real hard time finding an attack I can make. So down here, you know, it looks like I kind of outnumber Hood, but I count the numbers because he's in a fortification. It's just really, you know, really ugly to try to attack that. And likewise here with the breastworks, those don't look easy either. Up here, I don't know, you know, Ewell, I could hit him with a side womp and maybe do some damage, but maybe not. It's just really tough to find an attack that, you know, is going to generate more than like a +1 or +2, which aren't very good attacks to make. If you look at the combat chart, you can see, yeah, +2 is probably about where you slowly start coming close to even. You really want to hit around +3 or +4 to have any kind of real chance of doing more damage to the enemy. On the other hand, every Confederate strength point on that field is a danger. Except maybe these guys here who are, you know, the easiest to hurt because of the surrounding. And maybe I can get an attack off on them with the 9th Corps over there. Reno is awfully far away. I could have moved him. But I didn't. Yeah, I don't have a good attack anywhere else though, so that may be what I do. Unfortunately, I can't do a core attack there because with Reno or with his core because he didn't run up there. I'm having a lot of trouble keeping track of the core positioning. Part of it's all the damn counters on top of units. No real color coding to help you see which units belong to which corps. That also is hurt by the fact that, like, there's 2 different 3rd Corps in the game. You know, that does not help at all. And I'm not sure that whether I've got them mixed up or something. But yeah, it's not easy to see a good attack here. And if I do attack this guy, he gets to escape without making a roll, kind of. It'll take some damage, and that's if he's running, and that's good enough. He'll be at 4 fatigue or whatever. So it's kind of as bad as trying to extricate himself from the situation, but it's kind of like right now, he doesn't count for victory points if he doesn't get out of there because he's surrounded. That's not the case, you know, and not going to generally be the case because it's on an individual unit surrounding. So if you form a little cluster of units, even if they're all surrounded technically, they're still going to count for victory points. But that's the main reason for trying to fight at this point for the Union is attrition. You know, even if I come out a little behind here, I'm probably coming out ahead overall in terms of the victory points by just killing some of those Confederate troops. I was wrong. These aren't Union troops. Those are Confederate under that yellow fatigue marker, unlike the ones under this yellow fatigue marker, which are Union. I don't know what to do yet. I'm really having trouble being able to put the pressure that I want on the Confederates. As it stands, you know, without this surrounding, it's just not worth it. And the Confederates fell back to a decent enough, and I hope this is Confederate. Yeah, yep. So even if it wasn't, we'd have an escape this way, so it would, you know, be a pretty minor advantage. The components for this one are definitely causing more problems than I felt like Lee versus Grant did. The system has too many things that have to be visible. You know, you could say, well, maybe the fatigue doesn't have to be visible. Sure, but I feel like that's kind of the thing that I most process in terms of the numbers. If it were a different color for each side, I think it would work pretty well for me. I'm really torn here. I'm really having trouble being able to figure out a way to drop a hammer on the Confederates. And then over here, it's like, I don't want to even get out of there because I'm in this tripling of the fort that may save my ass. If I fall away from that, Confederates' more mobile capabilities because of the winning ties here probably means they'd be able to hurt me harder. Managed to hit Ewell successfully. We had like a +3. We got a good die roll combination. Not enough, you know, to continue movement or whatever. It was a core attack though, and I screwed up. Actually, wouldn't have ended my turn, but it still would have done 2 hits, which is good enough. And Oops, I didn't record enough casualties, I don't think. Did I do anything? Oh, geez, I don't remember what I took from him. I thought I dropped to 12. Yeah, he should be down a couple more strength points, and there should be a couple more registered here. He actually did more damage than, the Union did more damage than it took there. I just didn't record it right. But still, you know, I don't think it's going to make up for the huge amount of points that I think the Confederates have banked here in Prince William County, and I don't know how you avoid that. You know, sure, I failed to stop the Union here at the Rappahannock appropriately. However, there are ways around in either direction that the Confederates are going to get it to be able to park themselves somewhere where they're worth victory points. I don't think you can prevent them from getting up there. We'll see how many points that is in the end. You know, but right now it looks like it's quite a few because those are double points in those areas, and it just seems like a huge amount. Confederates were successful at taking Rapidan Station and marching away in pursuit, keep contact, something like that. I don't know. They're not in great shape for this. The rest of the force probably not going to pursue these. These were not even demoralized, so they still have their artillery available. Burn Rapidan, try to get as far north as we can on this raid, which the whole raid thing seems kind of weird to me. The idea that, yeah, I could park my forces out of supply somewhere and that's going to do me some good at the end of the game. That is very funky in terms of a victory condition. There's other aspects of the game that I really do like. There are others that I kind of don't like. The point difference, or the point value, for the Confederates being in Prince William, Fairfax, whatever, is not as high as I thought it was. I thought it was per strength point. It's per division. That's very different. Because the Union can cause damage to these divisions, and, you know, that's greater than the value of them hanging around down there. Right now I'm having a hard time getting a grasp on them, but it's not a clear, hey, no matter what, if I hit something, it's worthwhile. So, you know, like this, maybe it wasn't so worth hitting it. Well, I got lucky with that. Right now the Confederates are going, and Cav doesn't count. It's only infantry divisions, not smaller infantry units. So Stuart's probably going to go see if he can do something. Start moving somewhere where he can help factor himself in. Now, it's hard for me to see the unit size because it's a very, very tiny print on these things. But those are both divisions, which may be able to make it up, and they can take this, which I think is probably worth 3 points. It also makes it more important for me to make sure I hold this and not let the Union slip by. So I'll probably take an action moving down there as well. I was able to put some pressure on and then defeat Evans here and send him flying back. That allows us to put more pressure on Talafiero, and now an attack on him seems likely. I mean, the Confederates could try to move him, but is that worse than the fight? I don't know. Probably it's better trying to slip away at this point. He's in pretty bad shape where he is. Now, what county is this? This still looks like Prince William down here, so going into these marshes and everything, I'll still get a victory point for him, and I probably won't lose much more. The only problem is this is the back door to both Jackson and Longstreet's like biggest stacks. So the Union is beginning to make some ground back here. One was unable, luckily for him, Hinselman was unwilling to go into the attack on a core attack. That would have triggered the possibility of McClellan creating a grand attack on this space, which might have actually been at a couple of pluses with them not fully entrenched yet. They're only at breastworks right now. Some very good things could have happened, but they didn't. So instead we're going to, have fatigue going into next turn, but that's That's okay. Unless I can figure out something to do with First Corps here of value. We're pretty close to the end. The Confederates have been passing so far. And Siegel was unable to activate, but McDowell here managed to get himself an attack off and drove the Confederates back. And again, using the roadways, we don't get additional casualties, but we still cause 2 casualties to 1, which is a good thing. Plus, we're putting some pressure on the Confederates and throwing them back, and that just feels good, you know? I still have some units that I may want to move. Look at this cav here. I don't think he's doing much where he is. I got some infantry there that could still move, but otherwise, I think we're pretty close to done. Here, geez, I don't know. I was hoping to take that out, but I don't think Stevens has enough troops to be able to lay the hammer down. That's going to be a +3 for the surrounding because of Lee being present over here. Well, Jackson, whatever. But I'm having a hard time finding the troops to launch this attack as we move into September. The Union's actually done better than I expected down here, chasing everyone away. Hood's still there, but otherwise they've cleared out a lot of this area. The divisions are still there, so they're still going to create, victory points. But at least we're doing some damage to the Confederates, and like I said, it feels better. Over here, facing both Jackson and Longstreet's headquarters is, we got a lot of Union troops coalescing there. Both Jackson and the Union forces that attacked him were all, kind of disorganized. They'll be ready for another day of combat. Basically, it takes 1 day to rest, because at the end of the turn, in which you got slammed down to 4 fatigue level, you go up to 2. The end of the turn that you completely rest, you go down to 0 and you disorganize, which is, and you lose 1 level of demoralization too, which, largely you can recover during that time. We got other stuff back here though. This is like Talafiero and who else? Evans, who've been slammed around a bit. If the Union can get their hands on them, that would be useful. But they can just try to run. We're getting close enough to the end of the game now that I don't mind kind of force marching to get away from, bad situations. The problem is, right now, I've got these guys stuck in kind of a dangerous place. If I lose, say, here I got Kemper here in a nice strong position, but if I lose one of these 2 hexes, that becomes a lot harder to pull out of. I might end up surrounded, not counting for victory points or something like that, even if, the Union's not willing to launch the attack yet. I guess that's about it. I blew off shopping today, so tomorrow I may not be doing any more. I may be able to squeeze another one off tonight, though. But we have to load this one up because it's taken us a long time. And, these turns kind of promise to be longer, more painful turns. Like with Lee versus Grant, it's not quite as bad as it, but it's pretty bad. There's this, commands are all mushed together in an ugly fashion that makes them hard to use. Just because that's what the opportunities kind of insisted upon in terms of positioning and everything. And it's requiring a lot of effort to sort of peck through the pieces. I didn't think this would happen with this one. I thought it was so, so wide open and everything. But now when you get a major battle going, everything kind of comes in towards it and it gets icky. To clarify, these things wouldn't help much. They'd keep the big stacks off the board, but I still couldn't get a good view of what's going on based on them because there's too many informational counters and, several core pieces from several core in one box is just kind of an unpleasant thing. Plus, it takes up more table space to be dealing with the off-map displays, although I am finding I had a big counter spell It's pretty easy to recover in this, though, as long as it's not horrible, like catching the edge of the board and flipping it or something. Those are pretty bad. All right, let's send this up August 31st.